Hi Year 10, hope you're safe, hope you're well. Mr. Lloyd here for part 3 of our India lessons. So today we're going to have a look at India's industrial structure. This lesson's slightly harder than the last two we do, so please, if you have any issues, just let me know, just send me a message with this lesson. So previous lessons, we've looked at India as an NEE, a newly emerging economy, how it's grown, its location, why it's important, why it's an NEE, and last lesson we looked at the context of India. So today we're going to have a look at the industries, the sort of the jobs that people do in India. This is lesson 3. So to understand where India is, we need to understand the 4 main industries of India. And you can see here, I just highlight these up, we've got the primary industry, the secondary industry, the tertiary industry, and the quaternary industry. They're the 4 industries that all jobs fit into. Now, this quaternary industry here didn't exist till around 15, 20 years ago. This is a new industry that's set up with technology. So if we start off at the beginning, we can first of all see here that the primary industry is jobs getting raw materials. So this is jobs like farming, mining, etc. Getting the raw materials out of the ground. What you then do is move along in a conveyor belt. So once you've got those raw materials, you move on to the secondary industry. And the secondary industry is manufacturing, turning those goods, those primary industry sectors, goods into something else. So it might be taking metal from a mine and turning it into a car, taking cotton out of, from plants and turning it into garments and clothes. It might be taking crops out of the ground, turning it into food. So primary industry is getting the raw materials. Secondary industry is manufacturing them into something. Then we've got the tertiary industry. Once those goods are made, we move into the tertiary sector, which is then selling those goods. Last but not least, the industry that's only been recently set up is the quaternary industry, and that is things like high-end research into robotics, things like pandemic sort of medication and vaccines, and like they're doing at the minute with the coronavirus. And obviously, the more you move up this scale, the more money a country earns. So, for example, primary industry jobs are mainly like farming and mining, are mainly done by LIC countries. That means that they only earn a small amount of money. If we move up that scale, secondary industry jobs like manufacturing are mainly done by our NEE countries, China and India. A lot of goods are made in China, right? Made in India. So these earn you a bit more money. As we move up the scale further, you begin to sell those goods. This is done by our NEE and our HIC countries, and that earns you even more money. And as you move up, these quaternary industry jobs need university graduates, high-end researchers, high-end programmers, high-end scientists. So these do earn a lot of money and are only done in HIC countries where they have the universities and the facilities to do them. So you can see here, it's like a scale moving up, where the further you move up the scale, the more money you earn and you develop as a country more. So the next question is whereabouts is India on this scale? So India, let's bring up my mouse cursor there. India is currently around about here. All right, so it's not an LIC country anymore. It's an NEE, a newly emerging economy, and it's on its start of its journey here. Now, the problem India has got is this secondary industry sector is controlled by China. Nearly everything we buy has made in China in it. So India is going to struggle in this market because it's owned by China. So India has been quite clever about this. What they've begun to do is do high-end manufacturing here. That makes them more money, right? More money because they're doing higher end goods. So an example would be Chinese steel in Britain is not up to standard. We cannot use that for building in this country. Whereas Indian steel we use because it's higher end and better steel and we pay more money for it. So India therefore makes more money. But what India has been clever about is actually trying to skip this sector altogether. And India is trying to get more into this sector because they've realized if they can do the tertiary sector more, they can earn more money and they can develop faster. So that's what India is trying to do. Now you can see that, if I just clear those annotations and move on to the next slide, you can see that India last year, its GDP, gross domestic product, the amount of money that it earns, in 2016 was 2 trillion. And that money came from these sectors: primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. Now, we've just said the quaternary sector, India doesn't do it because it's not advanced enough as a country yet to do those high-end research jobs. You can see that primary sector doesn't earn that much money, and you can see that 50% of the country in India are employed in this sector. So half of the country work as farmers and miners, etc., but it only brings in 17% of the money. Whereas you can see down here, that tertiary sector that we talked about earning more money, 29% of India currently work in that market, but it earns over half of the country's money. So this 2 trillion, over 1 trillion of it came from this tertiary sector here. So how do they do that? Well, although India's manufacturing is still growing, the biggest growth is the tertiary sector, with a focus on IT and phone call centres is what India tends to do a lot of. So the last bit, the more difficult bit, this is where I want you to turn on your brain power and concentrate a little bit more, is what does that mean for India? How does manufacturing and industries growing mean that it helps the economy and the money of India? So if we start off, I've done this in diagrams, I just want you to take in that if companies come into India, that's going to provide people with jobs. If they're then working and got a jobs, they get a wage, and it makes people richer. So people become richer because they earn wages from jobs. Now, also, these companies here pay taxes, and they pay taxes to the government. So the government begins to become richer, and it begins to grow the country's economy. Not only are the companies paying taxes, but also our people who are earning more money also pay taxes out of their wages to the government. So the government's now earning more money. Next, if people are earning more, they want to go out, splash the money a little bit. Maybe they go out for meals more often, to the cinema more often, or go and buy themselves something like a car. That means our car garages, our restaurants start to do better for themselves, and they earn more money, and they pay taxes to the government. So now our government is making even more money from the companies, from the people, and other businesses all paying taxes. Then these companies are doing better, so they go and earn better wages, they employ people, they earn more money, and you can see that this then continues, that the country gets better. This is known as a positive multiplier effect, so the positivity grows through the countries. Now, as the country becomes richer and earns more money from all of these taxes, they begin to invest that into infrastructure. And infrastructure is things like better pipes, better roads, better schools, better hospitals. You can see here I've put better roads get better in India, and the people the children get educated, meaning that they are likely to get better jobs in the future. What that then means is other companies and other big businesses start going, oh, look at India growing. I want to be in India. So they invest their money, and new factories appear in industry, and industries appear in India. And as they grow, that then makes more jobs. And you can see that the whole cycle starts again. More factories come in, more money for India's government, people become richer, more factories come in, more jobs, and so on and so forth. So you can see how factories coming in, providing jobs, makes the economy of industry and industries grow in India. So that's quite a lot to take in. So that's where I'm going to pause today's lesson. So what I'd like you to do, as always, is complete your booklets and notes using today's lessons. Next, complete the quiz and show my homework that will go with this to check your understanding, and also so I know who's engaging with it. And last but not least, there's an extension question here. It says, explain how India's growing industries has led to economic growth. So that's using that last slide. How has growing industries led to India earning more money? Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the people that are taking part in these lessons. We're having some amazing feedback. Take care, stay safe. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd, over and out.